Okay, so welcome to today's webinar, which is focused on one of the most important stages of producing a dissertation, writing the problem statement. A task that at first sight may be thought as straightforward, but that is not. In fact, many of the weaknesses of dissertations are the result of not having a clear and well-defined problem statement. And to avoid that is why we are here today. This quote provides you a great course of action to have a research problem that really guides you throughout the whole process of your dissertation. When you have a clear vision of the problem you want to study, you are able to make wise decisions about what you have to do, and the problem statement is the beginning of that course of action, as the quote states. It gives you the exact picture of what is bothering you to the point that you want to study it. Of course, also because you want a degree, but that's another thing. That's another motivation, you know. When that problematic situation is clear in your mind, everything else has a reference point to which aligns. That is the importance that the problem statement has for your study. Taking that into account, I have created this agenda for today's webinar. We will begin talking about research problem, and you may say, why? Because it is the source of what is then written as problem statement. After that, we will present ways to approach the task of writing a problem statement, and finally, you will know how to evaluate the problem statement you have written. Before focusing on the research problem and its statement, I want to point out that a research problem emerges within a general area of knowledge that interests you. In other words, you are interested in a specific topic and identify situations within it that you want to understand better or solve. The topic provides the framework for selecting research problems, theories, background information, adequate research method, etc., to conduct your study and interpret the findings. Being the topic a previous element of choosing a research problem, it is certainly important to develop a dissertation. But you need to be aware that a topic is not a problem. So what is a research problem? I want to point out that you can find at automations at the doctoral net page for your university a specific automation for evaluating your topic of study or the topic that you want to study. But today we are going to focus on the research problem and the research statement. Well, a research problem could be either what calls your attention within the topic because it seems not to be working in the expected way, or what seems to be part of a situation, but there is not a deep understanding of it. In both cases, that element has to be studied. For example, within the reading learning topic, we can identify a problem like this. 5th grade students at a specific school district read at a level that is lower than the expected one. This is a case of a performance that is not expected. Therefore, this is a problem that you can study. This slide presents 5 essential characteristics that a research problem should have in order to be considered good. First of all, it has to be clearly stated. Welcome, Claudia. You have to say directly and precisely what you think should be the study in order to deal with a problematic situation successfully. It should not be interpreted in more than one sense, and that's why your problem has to be clearly stated in order to avoid misunderstandings, okay? Welcome, Sonny, Eugene, Crystal, Akina, okay? In the second place, your research problem has to be focused. In other words, it is clear what specific aspect of the problem interests you, and it states the who, what, why, where, when of the situation. Knowing what aspect of a problem really interests you helps you delimit the scope of the study, not too broad nor or too narrow. Formulate research questions and also impact the problem may have, the impact that the problem may have. Then significant. You should know what impact the problem may have. If you know the implication of a problem may have from the knowledge, social, legal, etc. point of view, then you can infer its importance of significance. Your problem should also be significant for your field of study. The more interesting your problem is for people, the more possibilities exist your findings may be taken into account. Then your problem has to be feasible. You have to be sure that your problem can be researched because you can identify the type of data and other information needed, have access to gather them, finish the study in the time established, and get the necessary funds. And it has to be interesting and suitable. You will spend 2 or more years working with a selected problem. Therefore, you should be sure it interests you as much as to work with it every week, and I would say every day, and think of it every day, and that you have the skills, time, and resources needed. There are other criteria to fulfill, but these are the basic ones. Evidence says, I get that the research problem helps to contextualize the problem statement so that readers can see the latter's significance. But then, must the research problem be real-world related, or can it provide the context for a theoretical perspective? Now, your problem can be theoretical, can be philosophical, can be ethical, but no problem happens in a vacuum. All problems are related to a context. That context doesn't have to be concrete or has to be part of the non-word, because you can have, if you have an ethical problem, perhaps the ethical context could be related to daily life, but sometimes we don't know if you can do it in a more abstract way. And the same happens with a philosophical problem, and the same happens with a theoretical new science problem, something like that. So the problem statement makes clear not only what the problem is, but the context into which the problem emerges, the context that produces the problem. And that is why a clear problem statement is absolutely necessary in order to have a problem that can be studied, okay? So the first step to understand the task of writing the problem statement is to know what it means. As usual, how can you work with something that you don't know, okay, that you don't even have an idea of what it refers to? As you see in the definition of the term, it is a description. However, a description may be done in many different ways. To be effective, a description must provide the information needed to achieve the goal to which that description is related. Okay. In the case of the research problem, the description must make the intriguing situation so clear that other elements of the research process, like the research questions and the methodology, can be inferred from it. Sorry about these movements, about my pauses in what I'm telling, but the computer makes some changes in my screen and put things very small, and I have to correct that. Sorry about that. Okay, so therefore, a problem statement should provide the information presented in this slide. What is already known? What is unknown? What is the purpose of the study? And why knowing it is important. So you can have both in the text and also in the quotes, you have what is necessary to have in a problem statement. In other words, you have to provide information about the context into which the problem emerges, what needed to be studied, and the reasons to do it. How to provide such information is something to reflect upon, since it should be done in such a way that readers, and especially other researchers, can understand it precisely and evaluate it appropriately. So, there are some requirements that your problem statement should fulfill in order to achieve the goals of being understood and evaluated properly. That is the focus of this section. And these are the characteristics that a problem statement should have in order to be clear and precise enough to be not only understood, but also evaluated. Of course, universities and supervisors may have different views of how to present a problem statement. However, this is a basic pattern to follow because it lets you state the problem clearly and precisely so your supervisor can know what you want to study. And if they consider it necessary, you may add information to that basic pattern. To a certain extent, you think of a problem statement that provides this information as the core of a modular design that you can expand according to the feedback received. Let's see what each one of these characteristics really means. Okay. Oh, the first one, brevity assures that readers do not get lost in words and that you can easily reread it whenever you have to make decisions in relation to other elements of the research. As I said before, some supervisors prefer that you write 2 or more pages. That's up to your supervisors. But if you have a basic problem statement, read it in this way, that would help especially you to to know exactly what you want to do, to be ready to make decisions, and then you can just expand that basic format into something that satisfies your supervisor's request. The second one, an attention-grabbing sentence interests the reader to continue reading, especially if that sentence refers to the importance of the research. So if you have a compelling opening statement, your readers will say, oh, this is interesting. Let me continue reading it. If you begin talking about other things and you write a boring sentence, then readers may think, oh, what is this person talking about? Background information sets the foundation to convince reader that your research is based on a strong basis. So that's what it refers when it says perspective of the larger field of a study. Okay? And linking your study to other important issues and fields of a study tells readers that your findings may be useful to others. Okay? That's the generalization to and across other fields of a study. Adrian says, so for example, a research problem from a theoretical perspective in my field would be that interlanguage fossilization deserve more empirical investigation because many people erroneously assume that fossilization applies to individual learners, meaning that the whole learning is the whole learning is fossilized with respect to learning any and every second language linguistic structure, when in fact fossilization happens at a much more level. All learners are capable of mastering some linguistic structure in a second language, but they are likely to show persistent non-progression towards a specific usage of a specific linguistic structure. This common theoretical misunderstanding among many could also serve as a research problem, I suppose. Yes, dear. If something intrigues you and it's something could be relevant enough to make teaching a second language more meaningful and easier and more permanent, then you have a problem to study. It couldn't be, in this case, it has a strong theoretical base. Yes, it's okay, but it has an impact in a daily thing, in this case, in the learning of another language. Okay, the next two elements that should be in the problem statement, the first one is limit the problem. It is because stating what specific aspects of the intriguing situation you are going to study sets the framework within you will work and be evaluated, and define the gap of information your study intends to fill. So you have to limit your problem and make the gap of knowledge clear. And finally, a perspective gives readers a clear idea of what you intend to do, and from one point of view, you will do it. Therefore, readers can know the paradigm of your study right from the beginning, and also what the purpose of your study is. So we have seen some characteristics that are necessary to be present in your problem statement. You can make it in different ways, but at the end, that information should be there. Okay, so now you know what kind of information must be included in your problem statement. So it is time to look at different courses of action to assure the creation of that piece of information. In other words, you know what should be there, but how can you get to that problem statement? Well, today I'm going to present two approaches that are developed in 3 steps. Each one of them have 3 steps, and you will see that they have common elements, but they are presented in different ways. So, this is the first of those approaches. According to this way of developing the problem statement, said that the first thing that you do is to gather information about what is not working properly or what requires to be known deeper. Why it is important to know better or solve that problem, and what evidence can be used to validate the existence and significance of the identified problem. Once you have all that information, you need to organize it, define the elements of the study, and explain the appropriateness of your decisions about how to conduct it. That's why there is that second step. And that's why a brief outline or any other organizing tool is useful for you to begin writing your problem statement. And finally, you make clear who are involved in the problem and where they are. All the collected information is the input to write a problem statement that has the characteristics mentioned before. Okay? So if you want to write a basic and well-defined problem statement that has the characteristics that we mentioned before, you may use this approach to do it. But you may use another one, like this one. This is a different way of developing the process that will produce your problem statement. It also has 3 steps. The first one refers to the task of gathering the information needed to clarify the context into which the problem emerges. That implies that you focus on establishing what happens, where it happens, who is involved, what should be happening, how the situation relates to other situations previously studied, and what is unknown. Okay, that's the first thing. Is the same of gathering information to be used as input. Secondly, you determine the importance of studying that problem. And thirdly, what do you intend to do in the study? What do you intend to do in the study? All that information is then used to write a statement that reflects the characteristic that define a functional and effective problem statement. You may say, which approach is better? In fact, there are not only these 2 approaches, there are many others. But which one is the best one for you? That depends on which one of them you find more comfortable with. You say, why? Is it a matter of being comfortable? Yes, because your cognitive and learning styles have a say in that. So try them and choose the one that best suits you. Okay? Or you can find you can find other ways of developing a problem statement in the literature, and you can choose the one that you feel more comfortable with. Okay, but the point is that you need to include all the information that is needed in order to present a clear picture of your study. Now, let's see 2 examples of problem statements so you can have a clear picture of what we are talking about. Okay. Here you have the first one. Remember that you have the handouts, and the person who are not attending today, they will have the handouts also for them to do it. So when you have enough time and your mind is on the correct state of mind to do this, read this example and try to determine if it reflects the characteristic that define a good problem statement. In other words, brevity, appealing opening, background, gap, usefulness, and purpose. Okay? And you will find that there are many different ways of expressing that information, but different language structure, different words to do it. But at the end, you are talking about something that includes the background, the gap, the usefulness, the purpose, and it's also short, and it also has an appealing opening. And here you have another example in a different field of a study. The first one it refers to engineering, and this one refers to social studies. So you can check the slides then and analyze it and get to some conclusions about why they are good problem statements. Okay? And how do you know if your problem statement is well written? Because, okay, you say, okay, I have all the information and organize it and I'm going to write this. And how can I know that my product is good enough? Well, we at Doctoral Net have thought about that, and we have created an automation that evaluates it and that you can find in the page of your university. So you can go to the page of your university and go to automations, and you will find there a specific automation to evaluate your problem statement. But right now, I'm going to present the criteria to evaluate your problem statement so you can have a good idea of what I'm talking about before you go to the automation. These are the criteria to evaluate your problem statement. So the first one, is it written in no more than 2 paragraphs? 1 or 2 paragraphs fulfill the 3 requirement for a problem statement: short, simple, and straightforward. Short, simple, and straightforward. Now, does it open with a compelling statement? The first sentence of a paragraph or section should catch readers' attention and interest so they want to read on. It means you need to indicate what the focus of your study is. Does it synthesize prior research? You should link your problem statement to important literature that backs up and solidifies the identifying need as a problem. Maria asks, what I found is that one problem can be interesting to different audiences, even in the same knowledge community. For instance, geologists. You might be using the same approach method to test your hypothesis, but you need to write your problem differently depending on who you are writing to, especially if you are applying for grants. Well, that's something different from writing a problem statement, Maria. What you have pointed out refers specifically to what research problem you have or you want to choose. That's different. Because what you're saying that one problem can be interesting to different audiences, that implies that if you want to get a grant, you have to choose a problem that interests the people who are going to give you the funds, right? So it's not a problem of how you write down your problem statement. It's a problem of what problem you have to choose in order to develop your research study and catch the attention of the people who are going to provide you with the funds. Two different things. One is choosing the problem, and the other one is how to write the problem that has been chosen, okay? All right, so number 4, does it contain a clear explanation of the research problem? And it's because you should present what intrigues you in a way that anyone can see it. I mean, to do that, you need to have the problem clear in your mind first. Because if that problem that you want to study is not clear in your mind, you will not be able to present it to other people in a convincing way, so other people can know what you are interested in, okay? So that's why you need to provide a clear explanation of the research problem, but that clear explanation must be clear in your mind before intending or trying to write it, okay? Does it state the purpose of the research clearly? It is because what you intend to do should be explained in unambiguous terms. Are you interested and you are going to gather new knowledge about that problem in order to be able to understand it better because it's a problem that has not been studied so far too deeply? Or are you interested and is your intention to solve the problem, to propose a solution to the problem? Because those are different purposes. And sometimes when you have a very complex problem, you can put those two things together. But what you intend to do with the problem has to be clearly stated. So nobody asks you to do something that you have not stated that is your intention to do. Okay? Does it summarize the theoretical foundation of the study? So the theories, models, and approaches to which your study is related should be stated so anyone can know the theoretical principles on which you base your work. Does it include the implication of the study? So why should I include that? Because stating the impact of your studying the problem makes it significant, evident, and you need to clarify why your problem is significant enough to be studied. Does it reflect the need for your study? The importance of a study depends on how much it is needed to fill up a gap of information. Therefore, the need for your study is an important element to be included in the problem statement. You have to say, nobody knows this, or somebody knows, not enough people know this. So the gap of information that you want to fill up with your study must be clearly stated. Now, are all the previous criteria given in one or two sentences each? To be short, simple, and straightforward, the 3 S's, the elements mentioned above should be written in very few sentences. Of course, it may be difficult at the beginning, but the more you work to fulfill the requirement, the more you will show your understanding of the problem. If you need a lot of words to explain the problem and what you are going to do, it means that in some part of your reasoning, you are not clear enough, that your understanding of the problem is not deeper enough. So you have to work with that. And that's why the more you practice, the better you are going to do it. And now you will see something that it happens to students who are not clear enough before writing their problem statement. And here you have the most common mistakes students do when writing a problem statement. The first two mistakes, a cause is assigned and the solution is included, make a study biased. If you already propose the cause of the research problem or its solution, then you are eliminating right from the beginning other possibilities without even consider them. And your study is focused on just proving your point of view. Therefore, your study is biased. Then, if no evidence is presented to set the background of the problem, readers cannot be sure if it is important or worthy to be that problem to be studied. Okay, so you need evidence to convince people, because it's not something that you can expect people to consider true just because you say that, just at face value. No. A long problem statement tends to be confusing and readers get lost in words. However, once again, I say that depends on what your supervisors ask you to do. But usually, when you write a problem statement that is too long, readers get confused and begin asking, what is this about? What is the real problem here? The next two mistakes that do not describe actual current condition or problem condition, or do not describe the ideal or desired condition, refer to the absence of context and or absence of purpose. Therefore, readers do not know what the started and final points are, and that makes the whole study confusing. If you don't know where the problem begins and where you want to finish it, then you get lost. If your problem cannot be measured or evaluated, then your findings cannot be assessed properly, and that makes them useless. If your data cannot be measured in the case of quantitative study or evaluated in the case of quality study, or both things in the case of mixed method study, although that data are useless. Okay? If the problem statement is unclear or not specific, readers cannot know what exactly you refer to, and they get lost again. And finally, if you include elements that are out of the limits you have established for the problem, or that are logical for it, then those superfluous elements hinder not only the comprehension of what you want to study, but also make some of your findings useless. Of course, there are many other kinds of mistakes that students usually made, but these ones are very, very, very common. Okay, so I say that if you want to know how promising your problem statement is, go to Doctoral.net Automation, choose the problem statement automation, and evaluate your problem statement. The more you practice, the easier for you not only to write problem statement, but also to evaluate them. You will learn how to evaluate problem statement, and that will be very useful not only for you, but also to you help your peers or your students, and it will be invaluable to evaluate what you read, literature, so you don't have to believe the conclusions of a study that you read just because it is published. No, not because of that, but because when you evaluate it, that when you evaluate the research study and you evaluate the problem and you evaluate the whole study, you see that it is coherent, consistent, and valid. Okay, so this is the main idea for today. When a thesis or dissertation has a clear and well-defined problem statement, it is easier for the researcher to make consistent and valid decisions. So why? What is the relationship between the problem statement and the decisions that I made throughout the whole dissertation process? Just because you can find the intriguing situation, the gap of knowledge, the information already known, the goal and importance of the studies at just one place, the problem statement. So when you are in the methodology stage and you have to make a decision about, for instance, what kind of research design you should use, you have to go to the problem statement and see, okay, what kind of problem I have? What do I intend to do with this problem? And that means what kind of data I will need in order to do or achieve my goal with this study. And it's the same when you choose the theories. You have to go back to the problem statement and say, is this theory interesting for this problem, for this study? It is really worth it to read about it and think about it. And when you present your findings, you have to go back to see if you have missed something. Okay? So this is the main idea of today. However, here you have the references that I included in this webinar. And we want to let you know or remind you that this summer you have many things that you can do in order to do your professional development, to improve your professional development. For instance, you will have all these options. And there is something very important for us that we want your help with. It says, please take this survey right now. Well, when we finish this, okay? It is a short survey that will help us gather the data that we'll need to know how we can improve our work, okay? And I want also to give you this link in which you are going to have a list of the webinars that are available for you, and that will help you in to take advantage of the resources that we provide you with. Okay, my dear, any question, anything that you want me to explain more, any comment to make, any request that you want to make? One. Any music that you want to listen to? So thank you, Eugene, for your thanks. Please tell me how to get to the automated problem statement evaluation. You have to go to your university page that is focused on DoctoralNet, or your DoctoralNet page at your university site, and then there you will find a tab in which you will see the word automations. Okay, Carlos, I'm very happy that you consider this clear and useful. Adrian said, may I share my problem statement here for evaluation? Sure, my dear. Maria says, thanks, I'm going to use these tips, suggestions, and do the automated evaluation. Great. And Susan said, thank you very much, very helpful. And Claudia, thank you for this. Thank you. This was very helpful, and I'm glad we have the slide. Mark, chapter 2, good. Chapter 3, underway. Good, my dear. So you are improving and getting forward. That's great, Mark. Oh, my dear. My dear Adrian, that's an interesting and large. Well, large is because of the big market space. But everybody, let's see. Do you think that Adrian problem statements begin with an appealing statement? With an appealing sentence that catch your interest in? Tell me, please. Is it appealing? Does it catch your interest? Yes. Why? No. Why? Let's take advantage of the opportunity in order to practice. Come on. If you read, the ability to master English as a second language is key to advancing educational opportunities, career prospects, and intercultural exchange in this globalized 21st century. Do you think that catch your attention to continue reading? I guess that more than one people here, more than one person here is a second language learner. Well, I should say, Adrian, that for me, it is appealing. Now, the next part, you begin to establish the context into which this occurs. For adult learners to develop proficiency in English or any other L2, extensive exposure to linguistic samples or input is deemed indispensable. And you present the literature support. Oh, Maria says that is a very good, that is an appealing sentence. Claudia, I would like help with mine as well. I changed committee chairs and I'm beginning again. Okay, we are going to do it. Maria says, I'm a second language learner, so it's important for me. But it might be shorter. Perhaps it is not so long, but you know that the space, the big marker provide for writing at the chat box is too narrow. And Claudia says, it catches my eye only because I am a bilingual and ESL environments. If I were not in this type of environment, it may not. Oh, yeah. And Adrian says that problem statement is under 350 words, which is a good amount of words if we think about abstracts. Okay, I will back much sooner than later. Thank you. Bye for now. Bye, Mark. Okay, good. Of course, what what Claudia says is true, but remember that this is going to be read by people on that field of study, in the linguistic field of study. Okay. However, all of you may develop the ability to check if something is well written or not, even despite the fact that it is out of your field of study. Okay, so you have there a description of the context into which that problem emerges. I would suggest, I don't know what you have been talked about in relation to this, but it could be possible to divide it into 2 paragraphs if that is allowed, okay? And if that is the case, I would divide it in the sentence that begins, the purpose of this study is to fill the above empirical gap, because in that way, in the first paragraph, you will have to introduce the problem, specify the background, and state what the information gap is, and then in the next one you can talk about the purpose and the significance and that for and also who is involved in that studies, and the kind of study that you are going to do, which is a qualitative one, and a frequency analysis, and then let's see how you finish it. You finish, say, ultimately, this information will help determine what empirically qualifies a robust input in a LA. Yeah, you finish it with, you say that it is in 2 paragraphs. Yes. Oh, you see? A similar mind, thinking in similar ways, you and me. Okay, good. It's good. I think it's a very good one. What about who says that wants to present hers? Come on. Claudia, you say that you want to share yours. Okay. Please do it. And we are going to talk to work together in order to that. Oh, I have to stop the recording because it will be near an hour. So I'm going to stop the recording, but we continue here working with Claudia's statement. Thank you very much for registering for this webinar. I hope to see you soon with my next webinar, and that will be on June the 27th, and is evidence-based reasoning. How to include evidence-based reasoning. I think it is. Well, my next one. Okay. Thank you.